Okay, I'm going to show you guys how to make this super cute Christmas stocking. You don't have to change colors. You can just do one color and that would also be really cute. But I'm going to show you with the color change in case you want to. So if you're not changing colors, just ignore the parts where I am and still just do the same stitches. And then there will be a written pattern as well for other sizes, and I'm going to show you other sizes that I made, and it's going to be different depending on your hook size and yarn weight and all of that. So keep that in mind. So this one I used worsted weight or number 4 weight yarn, but I used wool and I used it with a 5mm hook, and that gave me a much different size than when I made it. So same exact pattern and size in the written pattern, but this one I used a 5.5mm hook with medium weight or number 4 weight acrylic yarn. So not only is the weight of the yarn going to determine your size, but so is what fiber you're using. So you can play around with it and do what you want, but I'll keep showing you some other sizes that I made. And then this is pretty similar, but this is the small sized pattern in the written pattern, and this I used acrylic medium weight yarn, but with a 5mm hook. And then this is the large in the written pattern. Not the same exact pattern as this size, which was the medium. I used a 5mm hook with the worsted weight or weight 4 wool yarn. So it gave me pretty similar size as this, but slightly bigger. I do like the drape of the wool a lot more. The acrylic is a little bit more stiff, but you can block it and it'd probably end up being quite a bit larger if you did block it, if you wanted to do that. So do what you want, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how the sizes are looking depending on what you're using. So in the tutorial I'm showing you this one, which again was with wool, worsted weight, and I'll link everything below as well, with a 5mm hook. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps me know what kinds of tutorials people are liking, and I really appreciate it. Let's get started. All right, starting with the magic ring. We'll do 9 double crochets into the magic ring. And then slip stitch into that first double crochet to join the round. We'll chain 1, and then around each post or stitch of the last round, we'll do 2 front post double crochets. Show you again. So yarn over, and then from front to back and back to front around that post. So we'll do that twice around each stitch. So again, front to back and back to front. And then one more time around that same stitch. And again, front post, double crochets. We'll do that all the way around. And then we'll slip stitch into that first front post double crochet that we made. Chain 1. And then around the first front post double crochet around of the previous round, we'll do 1 front post double crochet, and then around the next stitch we'll do 2 front post double crochets. And then around the next stitch we'll do 1 front post double crochet, and then around the next stitch we'll do 2 front post double crochets. And then we'll just repeat that all the way around. And then slip stitch into that first front post double crochet to join. Chain 1. And now we'll do 1 front post double crochet around the first stitch, 1 front post double crochet around the next stitch, and then 2 front post double crochets around the next stitch. So these are just our increase rounds basically, if you're starting to kind of get the idea. So again, around the next stitch, 1 front post double crochet, around the next stitch 1 front post double crochet, and then around the next stitch 2 front post double crochets. So same thing all the way around, and then we'll slip stitch into that first stitch of the round, and we have 1 more increase round to go. So we'll chain 1, and then around the next 3 stitches we'll do 1 front post double crochet around each stitch, and then around the next stitch we'll do 2 front post double crochets. So same thing, around the next 3 stitches we'll do 1 front post double crochet around each stitch, and then around the next stitch we'll do 2 front post double crochets, and we'll just repeat that all the way around, and then slip stitch to join. And now we're gonna change colors. So I'm making a slip knot. And I'm just gonna pull through, and that's gonna count as our chain 1. So basically the next stitch is where we want to change colors, so we have to do it right before where we want our color change to be. And now we'll start our cable. So we'll skip the first 2 stitches, and then around each of the next 2 we'll front post treble crochet. So yarn over twice, insert front to back, back to front, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. And then same thing around the next stitch, yarn over twice, front post treble crochet. And now we're going to work around our skipped stitches. So around that first skipped stitch, we'll do the same thing. Yarn over twice, front post, treble crochet, and then around the next skipped stitch, front post, treble crochet, and then skipped the 2 stitches we already worked around, and then the next 2 stitches will front post double crochet around each of those. So just yarn over once, front post double crochet, and then again around the next one, but stop before completing the last pull through because we're going to switch back to our primary color. And it's always on the last step of the previous stitch. So pulling through with our new color or primary color. And that way our next stitch is in that color. And then the next stitch we're going to back post double crochet around. So yarn over once and then working from back to front and then front to back around that post. Pull through. And then around the next stitch we'll front post double crochet. And then around the next stitch we'll do another back post double crochet. But we're going to switch colors for the next stitch. So instead of completing that stitch with the primary color, we're going to switch back to our secondary color. So on the last pull through with our secondary color. And then that way our next stitch will be in this color. And we'll do the same thing that we did over here. So skip the first 2 stitches and then front post treble crochet, and then another front post treble crochet around the next stitch, and then going back and working around our skipped stitches, front post treble crochet around each of the skipped stitches, and then skip the ones we already worked around, and then around each of the next 2 stitches we'll front post double crochet. And we'll stop before completing this last front post double crochet because we're going to switch colors again. So switching back to our primary color, so the last pull through of that stitch will be in our primary color. And then the next stitch we'll do a back post double crochet. Around the next stitch, front post double crochet, and then around the next stitch back post double crochet, but we're gonna switch colors for the next stitch. So before completing and doing our last pull through, we'll switch colors and pull through with our secondary color, and then the same thing all over again. So just repeat that all the way around. All right, doing my last back post double crochet here, and we can complete this one all the way with the same color because we're just gonna slip stitch now to join or to close the round. So we'll slip stitch into that first front post treble crochet that we made. So we'll slip stitch, and then now we'll switch colors again for the cable part. And keep in mind that our colors our working yarn, we're just going to let it hang until we need it again. In case that wasn't clear before. Okay, now switching to our secondary color and chain 1. And now we're just gonna front post double crochet around the next 6 stitches. And so you might have to pull your stitches apart a bit to find that post to work around. And then on this 6th one, we'll change color, so don't complete it with this color. Do your last pull through with your primary color. And just a quick little side note, when you go to do your back post, front post, and back post, your pink or your secondary color that is hanging across like that, try to work above that, because otherwise it might show in front of your back post. I'll give you an example. So if I back post underneath it, then you can see it. Then you end up kind of pulling it forward. So you can kind of push it down and then work above it. Hope that makes sense. And then back post double crochet around the next stitch, front post double crochet around the next stitch, and back post double crochet around the next, and we'll switch colors for the next stitch. So we'll do our last pull through of this stitch with our secondary color. And then same thing for the next 6 stitches. We'll front post double crochet. And this last one, we'll change colors for the next stitch. So we'll do our last pull through with our primary color, and back post double crochet around the next stitch, front post double crochet around the next, and then back post double crochet around the next, switching colors on the last pull through. And then you'll just continue that same thing all the way around. All right, and we'll slip stitch into that first stitch to join. Then we're going to switch colors here, chain 1, and now the first 2 stitches, we're just going to front post double crochet, and then now we'll skip the next 2 stitches, and then we'll front post treble crochet around the next 2. So front post treble crochet just as we did before. And now we're gonna work into our skipped stitches, but we're gonna now work behind the ones we just made. So this is a bit harder, but it's possible. So you can kind of pull your stitches down so you can find those other stitches. So it'll be this one and this one. So we'll still front post treble crochet. So yarn over it twice. And you just gotta find that stitch. And then now around the next skipped one. Front post treble crochet. But on that last pull through of that treble crochet, we need to switch colors. So on that last pull through, so to complete that treble crochet, we'll pull through with our new color. Then around the next stitch, we'll back post double crochet. Around the next stitch, we'll front post double crochet. And then around the next stitch, back post double crochet. And we'll switch colors. So on the last pull through of this stitch, we'll switch colors. And I'll show you one more time. So the first two, we're gonna just front post double crochet. And then we'll skip the next two and then front post treble crochet around the next two. And then working behind the stitches we just made, we'll work into our skipped stitches. So this is the hardest one, but after that it gets easier, I promise. And then around the next skipped stitch. And then on the last pull through, oops. Then on the last pull through here, we're gonna switch colors. And then back post, double crochet around the next stitch, front post double crochet around the next stitch, and back post double crochet around the next stitch, switching colors on that last pull through. And then just repeating that all the way around. And then we'll slip stitch into that first stitch of the round. And once again, we'll switch colors here, pull through, that counts as our chain one. And now we're gonna basically just do the same thing that we did on the row before last. So we're just gonna do front post double crochets for each stitch of the cable, and then back post, front post, back post, double crochet. So I'll show you just for this one because it can be kind of hard to tell where to go, but you just have to look at the top of your stitches and you'll know which one is next. So front post, double crochet, front post, double crochet, and if you need to pull your stitches apart as well, that can help to be able to see where to go. So this will be the next one to work around. Oops. And then this one. And once again, you may need to pull your stitches apart a little bit to find the next one here. It's a little bit hidden. And then same with this one, a little bit hidden because they're behind the other ones. And on the last pull through here, switch colors, and then back post double crochet around the next. Front post double crochet around the next, and then back post double crochet around the next on the last pull through of the stitch, switch colors, and repeat the same thing. So front post double crochets, back post, front post, back post, and then repeat that all the way around. And once again we will slip stitch to join, and now you'll just repeat the last 4 rounds one time if you're doing this size, or however many times you want to repeat it to get the size you want. You'll just have to end on a repeat of the 4th round. Okay, I did my last back post double crochet of my last repeat. Now I'm just gonna slip stitch to join. And we're not going to switch colors here. Now we're going to make the heel opening. It'll make more sense towards the end because we'll come back. So for now we're just making the opening, and to do that we're going to chain 17, 17, and we're going to skip 17 stitches. So I'm just going to count the posts. 17. And then the next stitch we're going to do a back post double crochet, which matches up with what it was in the previous round. So it should end up being a back post. And now we're going to back post double crochet around the next stitch after skipping 17. So back post double crochet, but we have to switch colors here, so don't complete that double crochet with this color. On our last pull through, we'll pull through with our secondary color, and here try to give yourself enough slack to where since it's gotta reach from across, if you give yourself enough slack, it won't end up being right in this across the center, if that matters to you. You could also cut and then rejoin if you want, but I'm not going to do that. And now we're ready for our cable stitch. Now we're just going to basically do what we did on the first round of our cable stitch. So for that, we'll skip the first 2. Front post treble crochet around the next 2. and then working around our skipped stitches in front of the treble crochets, we'll front post treble crochet. So around each of our skipped stitches. And then skipping the stitches we already worked around, we'll front post double crochet around the next two. So just like we did the first round of our cable. And on this front post double crochet, we got to switch colors for the next stitch. So on our last pull through, we'll pull through with our primary color. Real quick before continuing, I'm going to mark a section, and it's not going to make a lot of sense now, but it will later on in the pattern when we come back to do the heel. So find where you did that first back post double crochet of this round. So basically where you joined the chain. Find that, which is right there. And then right after that, before the next stitch, we're just gonna mark the rounds horizontally. So we're not necessarily marking the stitch, we're marking in between the stitches. So right after that back post double crochet we made to join these rounds, and just mark it all the way. So around both of the last two rounds, or this round and the last round. So it's basically where they meet. This will come into play later, so don't let it confuse you now. So we want to mark them horizontally in between the stitches. All right, now we'll continue our round. Our next stitch is a back post double crochet, and then a front post double crochet, then a back post double crochet, and this one for the next stitch we'll change colors. So on our last pull through, I'll switch and then do the same thing for the next cable. So basically repeat that 2 more times. So here, and then we'll be back to the beginning of this round. All right, I just did my last back post double crochet of this round, and to join or to close the round, we'll just slip stitch into that first chain that we made. So we'll just slip stitch, and we can keep the same color here. And now we'll chain 1, and then we'll double crochet into each chain. So it should end up being 17 double crochets. So you do work into the chain that we just slip stitched into, because we're counting that as a chain. So double crochet, and then double crochet into each chain. $17. And then back post double crochet. So don't skip this back post. I accidentally did that and had to frog a little bit. So just save yourself some time. Don't skip this back post because then the numbers won't work out. So back post double crochet, and we'll pull through with our new color because we got to switch colors. And give yourself enough slack if you want to where it's not dangling straight across. And now we're basically gonna do what we did on our second round of our cable. So we're just gonna front post double crochet around each of the next 6 stitches. So you might have to pull your stitches apart a little bit to find the hidden ones. And then our last front post double crochet here. On our last pull through, we'll switch back to our primary color. Back post double crochet, and then front post double crochet, and then back post double crochet, and getting ready to switch colors again. So on our last pull through of that double crochet, we'll pull through with our other color. Oops, I'm caught. There we go. And then just continue that same thing. So front post double crochets, back post, front post, back post, front post double crochets, back post, front post, back post, and then I will meet you back once we get to the beginning of this round. All right, I just did my last back post double crochet of this round, and now we're just going to slip stitch into that first double crochet that we made. It's always this, when you're looking at the post, it's always that like V right before. I mean, other people might do it differently, but I have found that to work the best over time when you're like, which stitch goes with which post. Just a little side tip. Probably doesn't really matter too much as long as you're consistent and do it the same every time, but anyway, that's how I'm doing it. So the stitch right before the post is what counts as that stitch. So slip stitch. And now we are going to change colors. So chain 1 to start the next round. Pulling through with our new color that counts as our chain 1. And now we're basically going to do what we did for the third round of our cable stitch. So that's where we did a front post double crochet, front post double crochet, skipped the middle 2, front post treble crochet, front post treble crochet, and then working behind those treble crochets, we worked around our skipped stitches. So I'll show you that again if you'd like. You can skip around. I'll have chapters if you prefer. So we'll front post double crochet, front post double crochet, skip the next 2 stitches, then front post treble crochet, front post treble crochet around the next, and then working behind these treble crochets, we'll front post treble crochet around each of the skipped stitches, and then on this last front post treble crochet. On our last pull through, we gotta change colors again. So just like we did before. So pull through with our primary color to complete that treble crochet. And then we'll back post double crochet around the next stitch. So same pattern for the cable. We're just continuing the cable stitch basically. And then front post double crochet around the next stitch. Back post double crochet around the next stitch. And we got to switch colors. So on our last pull through of that back post double crochet, pull through with our secondary color. And then we'll do the same thing for the cable. So front post double crochet, front post double crochet, skip the next two, front post treble crochet, front post treble crochet, and then working into the skipped stitches behind the ones we just made. Well, front post treble crochet around each of those, and on this last one gotta get ready to change colors. So on that last pull through of that stitch, I'll pull through with our primary color, and then same thing, we'll back post double crochet, and then front post double crochet, and then back post double crochet, and on our last pull through of this double crochet, we'll switch colors, and then we're back to our other cables and we'll do the exact same thing. Okay, I'm back to the beginning of this round, and we'll slip stitch to join, and now we're just going to repeat what we did for the fourth round of our cable, so where we just front post double crochet for the next 6 stitches, and then back post, front post, back post, front post for all of those, back post, front post, back post, and just repeat that all the way around. And don't forget to switch colors for your chain 1. Okay, I just finished my last back post double crochet of this round. Now we'll, just like usual, we'll slip stitch into that first front post double crochet that we made of this round. And now we're just going to continue our cable. So what we did down here, our 4 rounds of our cable stitch. So technically rounds 6 through 10. We're going to repeat that. So we'll repeat that for this size. We'll repeat it 4 times. So do it 4 more times total. And then I'll meet you back for the cuff. And quick little tip, after I do my first cable of this next round, basically a repeat of round 6, I like to just mark and that way if you lose track of how many repeats you've done, it just makes it easier to know where you've started. Like, so this is our first repeat that we're doing. Okay, once we complete our repeats, your secondary color you can just cut. And now we're gonna prep for the cuff. So I've already slip stitched to close the round. And now we'll just keep going with our primary color. Unless you want to do it with the other color, then you can switch colors, but I'm going with the white. So we'll chain 1 and then single crochet into the next 14 stitches if you're doing this size. And 14. And then into the next stitch, we'll do 2 single crochets. Basically, we're just increasing a bit so we can get 48 stitches total. And after you've done 2 single crochets into that stitch, into the next 14 stitches, again, we'll do 1 single crochet into each. And then 2 single crochets into the next stitch, and then 1 more time into the next 14 stitches, 1 single crochet, and then the next or the last stitch there, we'll do 2 single crochets. So you should end up with 48 stitches for this round. And then slip stitch into that first single crochet of the round. And now we're ready for our cuff. And now we'll chain 24. And then into the 4th chain from our hook, we'll double crochet. And then double crochet into each chain until you reach the edge of the stocking. So you should end up doing a total of 21 double crochets. All right, I did 21 double crochets, and then we'll skip the next 2 stitches along the edge of the stocking, and we are counting that single crochet that we slip stitched into, we are counting that as a stitch. So skip 2, and then we'll single crochet into the next 4 stitches along the edge of the stocking. And then turn to work along your double crochet row. And then skip those 4 slip stitches that you just made, and then we'll back loop double crochet into that double crochet, and back loop double crochet all the way until you reach the end of the row. Should have done 21 back loop double crochets, and then chain 3, turn, and then basically the same thing, back loop double crochet into each stitch until you reach the edge of the stocking. And that last stitch might be a little bit harder to see because it might be kind of curved, so just make sure you have 21. So you kind of have to dig for it a little bit. Make sure not to count a stitch more than once, because for example this one looks like it could be a stitch, but it's not because it was already slip stitched into. And then the next 2 stitches we'll skip and then slip stitch into the next 4 stitches along the edge of the stocking. and then turn. And we'll repeat the same thing. So skip the 4 slip stitches and then back loop, double crochet into each stitch along the cuff here, and when you get to the end should have 21 back loop double crochets, and then you'll chain 3 and turn, and then repeat the same thing until you get all the way to the end, and then I'll show you how we'll seam the cuff. You should have 16 rows total for the cuff, and your last row should have been worked away from the edge of the stocking. Then we'll chain 1, and then we'll first insert into the back loop of the first stitch of this row, and then into the chain from the first row. And yarn over and pull through all the loops. So we're just seaming with a slip stitch basically. So to the back loop, then into the chain, and yarn over, pull through all the loops, and back loop, and we're just matching it up with the corresponding chain, pull through, and we'll continue that all the way until you get to the edge of the cuff. So should end up being 21 of these seaming slip stitches. And once you've done your last seaming slip stitch, just chain 1, fasten off, or however you like to fasten off, and you can weave it in now, or you can do it all at the end. I'm just gonna wait. But your cuff should be able to fold it down, and now we'll just do the heel part and then we'll be done. So for the heel, go ahead and face your stocking to where your heel opening is facing up or facing you, and then we're going to insert into one of like the middle stitches. So counting from the right, and if you're counting the posts, you'll end up joining between the 8th and 9th post. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 8 should be a front post, 9 should be a back post. So you'll insert into the stitch right between those. So I just did a slip knot and just pull through, chain 1 to secure, and then now we're just going to front post double crochet around each stitch until we get to the corner. And now here is where that mark that we did will make sense. So we're going to basically front post double crochet, but we're doing it around the tops and bottoms of the rows, I guess is a way, or rounds, I guess is a way to put it, where your marking is. And turn over, pull through, and then just finish that. So it's a front post double crochet, but it's not really worked around like a typical post, I guess. And then turn to work along the other edge of the heel opening, and then we'll just continue doing front post double crochets. So it should end up being 17 front post double crochets along this edge that we just did. And then we're gonna do the next one in this corner, basically just like we did on the other side. So just right after, I mean, this time it's not a back post double crochet, it's just like a chain, but same idea. So anywhere before that. And then we'll turn and work along the rest of the bottom of the opening. And then slip stitch into that first front post double crochet that we made to join. And then chain one, and then now we're going to start doing our decreases. So we'll front post double crochet around the next stitch. So we'll front post double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So I'll show you how we'll do that. So yarn over, basically start your front post double crochet, and then yarn over, pull through 2 like you normally would. Instead of yarning over and pulling through 2 to complete a double crochet, you'll yarn over again and then insert around the next post, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And then front post double crochet around the next, and then around the next 2. So I'll show you one more time how we'll decrease. So yarn over, insert around, pull through 2. Instead of completing, yarn over again, insert around the next, yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. We'll repeat that all the way around. So front post double crochet around the next, and then front post double crochet 2 together around the next 2, and then just continue that all the way until you get to the beginning of this round. Should have ended on a decrease, and then slip stitch into that first front post double crochet to join, chain 1, and then we're basically just going to repeat the same thing. So front post double crochet around the next stitch, and then we'll decrease around the next 2 stitches. Now when you work around the next 2 stitches, make sure you're working around that last decrease. That's not 2 stitches, that's 1 stitch. So you got to work around the whole thing. So yarn over, insert around the next stitch. So that's just 1 stitch. And instead of completing, yarn over, insert around the next, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3. And then same thing, the next stitch we'll just do 1 front post double crochet, and so work around the whole bunch there, and then around the next 2 we'll decrease again. So working around that whole bunch, and just continue that all the way around. And then we'll slip stitch to join, chain 1, and do the exact same thing. So front post double crochet around the next stitch, and then decrease around the next 2. And you'll repeat that all the way around. So you'll do that 5 times for this round, and then you'll end up with 1 stitch. So just front post double crochet around that last one, and then slip stitch to join, and then chain 1, and then now we're gonna decrease around each stitch. So the next 2 stitches we'll decrease around, just like we've been doing. So we're not doing a regular front post double crochet, we're just doing decreases all the way around. So on the next one, or next 2, I guess, and just do that all the way around. And then you'll have 1 stitch left, so you won't be able to obviously decrease around that one. So just front post double crochet around the last one, slip stitch into that first stitch that we made, and you can fasten off here, And leave yourself a long enough tail because we're going to weave the center to close it. And basically just like weave every other stitch or so. And just pull tight. And then from here I kind of just will sort of do like a whip stitch to make sure it's all closed. Just push it through to the other side, pull it through, and you can turn it inside out and weave it in if you'd like, but just so it's not sticking out the heel there. And weave in your ends that you have left, and that's it for this size. I really hope you liked that tutorial. And don't forget to check out the written pattern if you want for the other sizes of the pattern, which are slightly different. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate it more than you know. I'll see you on the next one.